QuaranJazz. Listen while you're home. Hello and welcome to the 30th episode of QuaranJazz. I am Geisa Fernandes, singer, songwriter and music researcher from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and for the last 30 weeks we've been showing what is happening in the world of independent jazz music. Musicians are talking about their releases, how they are coping with this crazy year, opening their hearts to you, dear listener, who is probably as confused and scared as we are. We are all in the same boat, and this was the idea that brought QuaranJazz to life. The need to do something to connect. The show is produced at my place with very simple tools. It's very rewarding to get feedback, realizing that, at least to a certain extent, we are reaching our goals. And that's why I thought we all deserved a present, something different, to celebrate this milestone. A little surprise. But first, let me remind you that if you'd like to be in QuaranJazz, drop me a line. In the description of this episode, you will find the links to contact me. There will be a link to my webpage, geisafernandes.com. You will also find a link to my newsletter, in case you want to subscribe and get regular content. And last but not least, you can also join the Facebook group, The Touring Jazz Musician. I've created the group to inform jazz musicians about jazz festivals worldwide that accept submissions directly from artists. If this is your thing, join the discussion, The Touring Jazz Musician on Facebook. But I said I had a surprise for you, so here's my surprise. Up to now, we have been listening to jazz musicians and their stories in QuaranJazz. But today, in order to celebrate our 30th episode, we are going to have a different one. And what is different about it? Well, to start, my guest this week is not a musician. That's right, she belongs to the group of people with power to decide whether the email that you've been working on for hours, rereading, re-editing, will be opened or not. And she's ready to share lots of important information with us. So drum roll, please. And let's welcome Arlette Hovinga. Thank you, Arlette, for your participation. I'm so glad that you had the time for sharing all these golden nuggets of wisdom with us. Really happy to have you here in QuaranJazz. So let's start. Can you explain to our listeners what you do, which tasks and skills are involved in your job? We want to know everything.
Hey, Geisa. Thank you so much for having me here on QuaranJazz. That's wonderful. I've never been on a podcast before, and I've definitely not tried to have this conversation in my head like 20 times.
Well, there's a first time for everything in life, you know.
So anyway, my name's Arlette. I'm based in Rotterdam, the Netherlands. I work in marketing and promotions, so I guess you could say I'm a promoter in some way. There's a lot of other stuff that I did before this entire situation went down, but let's start from the top here. I work in marketing and NPR for Jazz International in Rotterdam, where I'm based, as well as for the festival in Nijmegen. The festivals are supposed to take place in the last couple days of October, 29th, 30th, and the 31st, and then on Sunday, the 1st of November as well. So fingers crossed, because that's going to be the first jazz festival of the country, I guess, sort of. It's, you know, like you're used to taking an annual pilgrimage, and it's not happening this year. That's kind of how I feel about all of these wonderful festivals that didn't happen. Like, I was going to go on the jazz train to Berlin this year. I mean, come on. For Jazz International, I do their festival, and I also promote their Jazz International Rotterdam's concerts in venues across the city. And that includes now, lucky me, a wonderful series called Één op Één, that's Dutch for one-on-one, where we connect young Rotterdam-based jazz artists with one of their personal heroes, which is great, because it's like an on-stage mentoring session, I guess. I mean, we provide them with like a really great rehearsal space. These young cats get like a photo shoot with a good photographer in a really nice studio, and we got a great designer to create posters, and we have beer coasters with their photos on them. I mean, who doesn't want a beer coaster with their face on it? I just thought that was hilarious. But it's also more sustainable, and I think more effective than flyers that people just, get pushed into their hands or whatever, and look at once and then throw away and forget about it. But hey, who doesn't like, a nice jazz musician holding their drink? There you go. So we're working on that, and that's the kind of stuff that I do right now. Then I work for Jazz Fuel, which, as I'm sure some listeners will know, is a platform for jazz musicians who want to present themselves better and get more gigs. And the whole website is just chock full of super useful information. And it's all, one thing is more helpful than another. So there's a couple of programs that you can sign up for, one of which is the press outreach program, where Jazz Fuel helps you promote your upcoming next release, and that's the part that I'm involved in, and it's been a lot of fun. It's so great to to help people grow their audience and to get great feedback from journalists and radio hosts that love the stuff that you're, well, hopefully anyway, that you're trying to gig to them, which is, it's a lot of fun. So before Corona, I worked for Earthbeat Agency, and I kind of still do for as far as possible, where I produce tours, did a lot of pre-production with festivals, tours, venues, whatever, and I was supposed to go do bookings for them as well. We never got around to that, and I think in the future I will actually, but I'm not sure. I never thought being a booking agent was going to be in the cards for me. In fact, I've always said that I didn't want to. Then, an opportunity arose that someone made me an offer I couldn't refuse, I guess. So, that's something that is bound to happen in the near future that I can't really say much about yet, but it's exciting because it's such a great crowd and they're such amazing people and I love working with them and I really, really, really want to just, keep that fire burning together. So I'm excited to get started with that again as well. And then finally, in Rotterdam, I am coaching a group of students to organize Stuka Fest Rotterdam, which is a festival based in student rooms, which should take place in February of next year. And it is it's so fun to see them, discover how it works. Because, they run production and they talk about lineups and fee negotiations and promotions and who do we talk to? We have a press list. How do you write a good press release? And what about finances, budgeting, Chamber of Commerce registration as the foundation that you are if you want to apply for funding. How does applying for funding even work? To write a project plan for it. It's a lot of stuff to take on, and they're doing a really, really great job. I'm extremely proud of them.
And I know that you've been working on a book as well. What can you tell us about this project?
So I'm bringing all of these things that I'm working on, talent development, promotion, production, together in this one monster project called The Artist Promoter Gap, which is a book that I'm writing about artist promoter communications or lack thereof, which is hopefully a good toolbox for musicians, not just in jazz, although it's geared toward jazz musicians because that's my industry, but not just for jazz musicians, but for all musicians to try and craft and maintain meaningful and long-term relationships in the music industry. So it's not about, how to get more fans or how to make more money or anything, because, there's a lot of books about stuff like that. And that's not, I wasn't interested in writing a book that had been written before because surely, there's a lot of people that have done a great job at all these things. But I think there's a lot of frustration between artists and promoters. For artists, because they feel ignored sometimes or rejected. when their emails aren't answered, or when a gig that they really, really want doesn't materialize for some reason or other. And I think that a lot of promoters get frustrated because they are not perceived or treated the way that they would like to be perceived or treated. And that results in them ignoring people that might otherwise actually be completely brilliant, meaning that an audience misses out on potentially great music because of this disconnect between these two groups that inevitably always need each other. At the end of the day, there is no show without either of these two people. Someone needs to keep a club running, and someone needs to be on stage at that club to make that club what it is, because audiences will always want music. If it's if it's like 30 people seated down at the table, if it's pre-corona, post-corona, during corona, people will always want to get together and unite in art. I've actually worked a beautiful, beautiful show at Parts on the 26th of September with Marcos Santos, who runs the United Art Movement, and he's got exactly the same idea when it comes to that. It's quite beautiful, really, that art brings people together, and it doesn't really even matter if it's jazz or if it's punk rock or if it's EDM or maybe it's body percussion or live painting like he did at that show, and that was amazing. People want to experience new things, and I think people are naturally curious. So however trying the current situation is, and however trying it can be, even without corona, to keep going as a musician and to keep growing and keep trying to connect to people, it is always necessary, because people will always want to go out. People will always want to hear music. Always.
And how was the lockdown in the Netherlands?
I don't know. I think I've told you a little bit about where I'm based in Rotterdam, although I spent a lot of time in The Hague as well, which is where I grew up. And I was, like I said, I worked for Earthbeat Agency before COVID, and because we had what they called an intelligent lockdown in the Netherlands, for me, it wasn't really, it wasn't really as rigorous as it was for other people in other countries, I think. I have a lot of friends in the United States, and my heart is breaking for them. It really is. It's just, venues that can't reopen, even though it's been proven that they can socially distance, and in a lot of cases, especially outside. I mean, if you're, I don't know, in a southern state somewhere where the weather's glorious, why can't you socially distance and go out and have music there like that? Because, research has shown that things are, it's a little safer outside. At the same time, the situations are so different here and in the United States, for example, and in the UK. I mean, we're all trying to stay safe, but we're all trying to stay sane at the same time. And I think that's a very, very difficult combination and difference that at this point, I don't envy the people that are in positions of power where they have to make these decisions. Because in the Netherlands, I think we've done fairly well, which is why we have music and why we have shows and why I'm still here on the scene. We're having this conversation right now. But, oh my God, I think nobody can actually wait for this thing to finally be over. It's so complicated, and it drives everybody crazy. So yeah, I'm not really sure what I should tell you about the project, other than I can't really say much about the negotiations I've got going, but there is a show series in the old North Sea Jazz venue coming up in The Hague, actually. Yeah, there's that. Yeah, it's all New Year's, and we don't really know. So I can tell you endless stories about, the people that I work with and the way that I am hopefully continue to be employed, but I don't know. I just honestly don't know. But, there's, I think that's one of the reasons I started to write this book, because it has a beginning and it has an end. And this is just my way of giving back to my community. I've been talking to people about the importance of a good bio, the difference between your bio and your resume, for example, which is a big one, and about, what a good press kit looks like, or a good video, or, why do you respond to some press pitch emails and why are some immediately ignored? That's a big thing. And then what else is there? How does crowdfunding work? How can you use crowdfunding not to look like a beggar, but actually to interact with and grow your audience? How does that work? How can you use this as a tool to better yourself and your product? Branding is not a scary word. It's actually, it can be fun as long as you stay genuine and honest with yourself and with other people. So I'm hoping that it'll be helpful to musicians, and I'm hoping that when it comes out, people will actually want to read it, because, it's the only product you can buy that will give you insights in, promoters' minds in, I think, about 20 countries right now. I've spoken to some of my friends, of course. I've had hour-long conversations with them. And then I've spoken to people in, I spoke to Ivan Larsa, who is the director of Oslo Jazz Festival, and Bogdan Benigar in Ljubljana. And then, there's people in Australia, in the United States, in Russia, in Korea, in Chile, in Mexico, South Africa. I've really, really tried to look at as many corners of the world. And sometimes I ask people the same question 4 times, just so I was sure that what I'm writing down here and what this book is about is consensus in the jazz industry. And of course, there's always bad apples, and there's, just like you are probably going to do something dumb and fail a million times until you get up again and do the same thing but better, or do things differently. Everyone, whether you're on stage or whether you're behind the scenes like me, everyone has to do dumb shit at least a million times, because you don't grow great, out of nowhere. Talent does not grow on trees. I think talent is a combination of practice, of mentality, and of just, rebuilding yourself time and time and time again, because you have this feeling and this drive, and there's nothing in the world that you would rather do than this. You just, you got it. I think it's a Japanese idea, where they, when you drop like a porcelain cup, for example, and they use like this gold-plated glue or something to put it back together so that you can like look at the cup and yeah, it broke, but now it's extra beautiful, because it has all this experience. It's kind of survived and re-emerged, I suppose. And I think that's a funny and an interesting way to look at that, because it works the same way for musicians. I think we should be a little more forgiving toward ourselves and just try to be the best person you can be in your community, in your project, with the people around you, especially now, because everyone is hurting. Whether we're working or not, everyone is hurting. So patience and kindness are the real virtues, I think, that people are looking for right now.
You certainly gave us a lot to think here. And what kind of short, practical advice would you give to musicians? Well, not only musicians, anyone working the creative field.
Hi, musicians. Buy my book. No, I'm kidding.
That's great advice. That's the best.
It's like a short practical advice. I mean, like I said, be kind, be patient, and be honest. But also, if you don't, if things don't work out for you, reach out to someone and ask why. Don't necessarily ask how, because that's not the first question that you need to want to answer. What this is about is growth. It's always about growth. It's about being genuine and bettering yourself. So if things don't work out for you and you've sent out 100 emails and nobody gets back to you, find someone. Marcella Pupini actually said this. I'm quoting this from the book. She's wonderful, by the way. And she said, get mentoring and get someone to tell you why you're crap and not that you're crap. And it could be so many things. It could be the way your brand looks. It could be using weird colors or an ugly website that makes me want to gouge my eyes out. They exist. I swear to God they do. Or it could be that maybe it is the music. Maybe you're doing something that just isn't really you. Or maybe it's the email you sent. I met one of my best friends because she sent me an email saying, "Hey, dear Miss such and such, blah, 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 blah." And it was like the longest business email I've ever read in my life. I hate those. Please don't treat me as a businesswoman, because we're not in the sales business here. That's the mantra of the book. We're not in the sales business. We're in the people business. So do not be afraid to reach out to people. And, because when you reach out asking for help, that is infinitely more genuine than just reaching out because you want something from someone. Nobody wants to be used. Okay, so thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Humans making human business. Very well put. I like that. And I'm glad that you are highlighting it. Thank you. So you've selected for us a track from one of the groups you work with, a track that will be included in our QuaranJazz playlist, of course. No talk, all jazz. And I would like you to tell us why you've chosen this particular group and something about the track.
Let me tell you something about this awesome band called Settlers. They're from Russia. I was in Russia about a year ago, almost a year ago. Oh God. In Russia a year ago to be a juror at Jazz Across Borders, which is, I think, the biggest jazz conference. At least it's the biggest jazz conference in Russia. And I think it might actually be, I think only Jazz Ahead is bigger, but I'm not entirely sure of that. But anyway, it was a great event. And at this competition that we were judging, I saw this band, and it's led by this a lovely girl, Yana Shelpakova, and they mix Russian folk music with jazz and funk and a whole lot of groove. And the song that I selected at first is it's called Selo Feselo, and it got me instantly because it's fun, it's it's upbeat, but you can very clearly hear the folk. It's just, I think these kids, I don't even know how old they are, but yeah, there's such a boatload of young, exciting talent in Russia, and I think the Russian jazz scene really deserves a little bit more love internationally, because a lot of people, at least in the Netherlands, know Igor Butman, for example, but a lot of these younger names like Settlers, like Konstantin Kazanovich, there's so much out there. There's so much to explore, and I'm when things go back to normal, I hope that that's one thing that I could be a small part of. So here's some Russian folk jazz for you, and please enjoy. Oh, by the way, Selo Feselo, I'm only just learning Russian, but I think it means the village is fun, or fun village, something like that. So bear with me if that's wrong. If anybody's listening who speaks Russian, feel free to shoot me a message and correct me. I try to answer all of my emails, even the mass mailing ones that I get. I try to get back to those. So this is Selo Veselo by Settlers, and check out their latest single as well, which has just been released like a little while ago, from what they told me. Okean More. It's called the Ocean Lake, I guess. It would be my guess, but I'm working on my vocabulary almost on a day-to-day basis. This is thank you so much again for having me. It's always a little bit awkward to talk about myself this much, as like I said, I usually promote other people and not myself. But no, it's been super fun. So thank you for having me, and I hope that my babbling about my job and my drive to help give back and help talent develop has given anybody some meaningful information and something to work with. Thank you.
Of course! It was so useful, so interesting. This is the kind of information that we musicians are always looking for. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. Really, it was really fun. Thank you. And a wonderful present to all of us. Thank you very, very much. And thank you, dear listener, for staying with us so far. This was the 30th episode of QuaranJazz. I'm Geisa Fernandes, singer, songwriter, and music researcher from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And if you want to share your stories here with us in the show, or if you have any questions, suggestions, critics, compliments to make, drop me a line. Do you know how to contact me? You just have to check out the links in the description of this episode. You can use the contact form on my website, geisafernandes.com. You can subscribe to my newsletter and get free regular content. And last but not least, if you like social networking, you can join the group, The Touring Jazz Musician. There you'll find updates and information on jazz festivals that accept submissions directly from artists. The Touring Jazz Musician on Facebook. Join the discussion. Once more, thank you very much for your company. Yes, we made it. 30 weeks.
Hip, hip, hooray!
Thanks to you. And now, ladies and gents, the special choice of our guest, the Settlers, Celo Veselo. QuaranJazz. Listen while you're home. QuaranJazz, a podcast by Geisa Fernandes.